Amazing Race Specialists are back, and we are here to recap this amazing episode of the race. So I like this episode. It was all right. I didn't like the ending, but I liked the episode as a whole.
Yes, the ending was a shame. I've been a Pops and Jeff truther the whole time, but yeah, overall, how cool was all of this? Like, if Dubai was not on your bucket list before, it should be now, because this was so much fun to watch everything that they did in this
Yeah,
city.
exactly. From like the desert stuff to the pit stop of seeing the Museum of the Future, like that building is crazy.
So crazy. And like, who I'd venture to guess the average American has not seen a camel in person, or at
Mhm.
least not in its, habitat,
Yeah.
like just walking on the side of the road. Like,
Yeah, just a
that would be
casual
so
camel.
surreal. Yeah, the coolest stuff.
Um, so once again, we're equalized.
Mhm.
We have Brett and Mark leaving at 3:55, with Jonathan and Anna leaving at 5:29. Um, but it's only a 19-minute difference from Nick and Mike, and Jonathan and Anna had to do both legs or both sides of the detour.
Yeah,
And I was surprised at the time difference where it was still pretty close.
it is close. I mean, Nick and Mike they kind of struggle. Like, I would put that more on them. Jonathan and Anna, they did fall behind, but not too far behind.
Mhm. Yeah. So they have to fly to Dubai. They get to know that they have the opportunity for the fast forward. And then when they get to Dubai, they're like, everyone is looking at the architecture and how amazing it is. They see the Burj Khalifa, and then Brett and Mark are like, they ask their taxi driver, like, "Oh, what's your favorite part of Dubai?" And they think he says the Wiz Khalifa?
Yes, he's so big in the UAE that he has the tallest building in the world named after. That
Yeah.
that tracks.
So I think they were just confused the entire time. I
Yeah,
hope they know now that it's not the Wiz Khalifa, but who knows?
yeah. They must not have seen Mission Impossible 4. Go watch that if you haven't.
Yeah, right. They then know that they have to get to the Platinum Heritage Desert Gate. And then there they can take coffee cups for either 5:10 in the morning or 5:20 in the morning, and that gets them their camel ride uh essentially to the roadblock. And so we have Alyssa and Josiah, Jonathan and Anna, Han and Holden, Carson and Jack at the 5:10. And then we have Melinda and Erica, Pops and Jeff, Brett and Mark, and Nick and Mike in the 5:20. And that's kind of basically where we stay with these two groups, that the 5:10s are battling each other, the 5:20s are battling each other. And I'm surprised that there wasn't a lot of movement.
Not really. This was kind of like two equalizers back to back in a way. I
Mhm.
know they left at two different times, but you have a group all going at once, and then only 10 minutes later, here comes the other group.
Yeah.
Because they all were on the same flight, right? They all had to
Yep.
wait at the airport. And then here again, they all get there and then they all leave pretty much at the same time again. But yeah, there was not a lot of movement because, like, the first roadblock, you had to go one at a time. It's not something that you could pass somebody up if you
Mhm.
signed up in the order that you got there.
Yep.
That's how you jumped out, and you couldn't really get ahead of anybody or make up any time on that part.
And again, it was 2 planes now. So the
Yeah,
roadblock is who wants to drop into Dubai, and obviously I am taking it because
you're
drop
taking that
in,
one. I
I'm
would
like,
hear
"This is
drop.
skydiving."
Yeah, that would
This
be
has
you.
to be. So I will gladly take a skydive into Dubai, no problem. Um, and so the people to sign up in that first plane are Jack, Holden, Alyssa, and Anna.
Mhm.
And then Brett, Nick, Pops, and Melinda are in that second plane. So we're still getting these like two groups of timed, like they're kind of forcibly in these two groups, and
Right.
no one is really able to pass each other, not in even in like the fake route info detour situation.
Yeah, they didn't have an opportunity to make up any time until later on in this
Mhm.
leg.
So Jack and Carson, Han and Holden want to both go for the fast forward.
Mhm.
And what I thought was different about this fast forward is basically only one team got to do it. Whoever
Yeah.
got to the orange car won
Mhm.
and can go do the fast forward. Typically with fast forwards, you go and try and do the task, and then the first person to complete the task gets the fast forward, and then you have the, "Oh crap, now we have to go and do a detour," and, like, the rest of the race.
Yeah, that's kind of the high risk, high reward part of the fast forward is that if you have multiple teams going for it, only one is going to get it. And then you have to decide if you want to spend your time
'Cause, like,
doing
why
this.
not
And then
try
try to
and
get
go for it here?
right.
Like
And it wasn't horribly difficult. It was just kind of time consuming, right? They had
mhm,
to, get set up, get all the gear,
yeah.
go through the demonstration and whatever, and then actually do it. But in terms of difficulty, it just, I mean, it seemed cool. Like I would rather do this.
Yeah, I know. I was like, "Holy cow, this, like, underwater city, like, ruins." I was like, "This is awesome."
It was
Like, you
so
see all
cool.
of them on Instagram when you're just scrolling through. Um, and so they eventually find the plaque on the pool table because they cut kind of back and forth a little bit
Mhm.
to Jack and Carson, but they're searching through. They know that they're looking for the fast forward, but they don't know exactly. I think that it's like this plaque, so or how big it is or anything like that. So like eventually they find it glowing on a pool table, and it didn't seem like it took we'll see, I guess, next episode and when they leave
Mhm.
compared to Han and Holden, of how long it took up to do the fast forward versus the legs of the race.
Yeah, I do wonder because obviously they skipped. They were so far ahead that Phil
Mhm.
didn't even explain where the pit stop was yet in the
Yeah.
episode. Like they just got there, and then later he says they'll find me here, and it's like, well, we already saw that when Carson and Jack got there.
Yeah.
So that was funny.
Mhm.
But yeah, usually the fast forward I think is something that like you don't want to do, right? It's a task that is like
I
demanding in
remember
some way. Like,
that's 2 that stand out to me is, like, trying to get all this, like, massive amount of hay on a truck, and you
mhm.
have to do it the fastest. And then another one is, like, landing a toy helicopter on a toy
Yeah,
helipad.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I'm like, these are 2 that are, like, time consuming and, like, so niche that,
Mhm.
like, anybody could do it, and it's tricky enough that, like, I don't know. So
Well,
this fast
the one that always sticks out to me is when Rachel Riley won't shave her head. Um,
well, because and also they did that with Uchenna and Joyce too, because I think Rob and Amber got to it next, and they were like, "It's already taken."
yeah,
So, like, there's there's I think they do the shave the head so many times, a few
they do.
times.
It is a classic one, and it is one of those where it's like it's kind of easy, but it's so undesirable that
Yeah.
teams aren't going to go for it. This one seemed desirable. Shout out to your friend and mine, Ian Moorhead. One of our inside jokes is the song "Car Underwater" by Armor for Sleep, and every time I saw those cars underwater, I thought of that.
Um, so if you're not doing the fast forward, you are going to the Atlantis Hotel, the Royal Atlantis Hotel, and you have to prepare afternoon tea, which is essentially finish a bunch of fancy pastries and sandwiches and things like that. Um, and I was thinking about this and I was like, this seems like one half of a detour. I don't
Yeah.
think they're gonna have another detour here. So I think we're gonna have another roadblock, a
Mhm.
double roadblock race
Yeah.
because this route info really was like it was a detour and people were able or they could have, passed each other and things like that. It was time consuming enough, and then with checks and things like that, it really, provided that
Mhm.
movability within the ranks.
So I just thought of why that could be, because it does seem like the two detours. You either do the surfing or the
Mhm.
surf, right? Serving and surfing. Maybe that's what they could have called it.
Yeah.
But it did seem like two halves of the detour. It's one that's like very kind of tedious, or one that's more physically demanding.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe the reason why they split it up. I feel like this was a detour that they decided to split up into two different tasks that you had to do, because we've seen a lot of lopsided detours in
Yeah.
this season already, and I'm sure that this cost them something to book all of this at the hotel,
Yeah.
because wow, I wonder how much it costs to stay at that place. Uh, and they're like, we didn't like spend all of this um just to have like two people do it, so we're gonna make them do this and like get it in there.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just my guess.
I mean, that's pretty smart to be like, to say, "Hey, this was hella expensive. You all are doing
Yeah, you're
this.
doing it. We're not gonna have just two teams here,
Everyone is
go do
having a
this.
fancy tea party, all right?"
Yeah, or maybe they're sponsored by the hotel, or maybe the hotel
Yeah,
gave them something, and it's like, yeah, you all have to do this.
yeah. We see Alyssa and Josiah leave first here, but they did forget like some gold leaf. They did gold discs or something instead. A common miss was like these little white flowers on one of the
Yeah,
cupcakes.
flowers are
And
big.
then Jeff just like knocks half the icing off of one of the cakes off on the floor, and he's just like, "Well, get
Yep.
back in there."
Erica also did the same thing, just like didn't
Wreck the
see something
cupcake.
there, wrecked it. Yeah, Pops and Jeff, this was not their task at all.
No,
I mean,
they
they're
could not
huge,
brute
right? They have
force this.
no fine touch. She said that we just carry stuff around for our job. Like, this is so not in their wheelhouse, and you could tell.
But we did see a different side of, Nick and Mike today where they're like, "We always try and ram through things. We're
Mhm.
gonna take our time and get it right with these detail-oriented challenges. We're not just gonna rip through it and get out here fastest because it won't be correct."
Yeah, which I guess that worked for them. They didn't really make up any time in the standings.
No.
um, at all. In fact, it was almost the opposite. So I don't know. But yeah, they made it through. They weren't the last team to leave.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, we have Alyssa and Josiah leaving first, Jonathan and Anna leaving second, Han and Holden leaving third, Brett and Mark in fourth, Melinda and Erica in fifth, and they were worried like, oh, we're in last. We're just gonna play like we're playing the race because it's a lot more stressful to think that, oh my gosh, you have teams behind you. You got to stay in front of
mhm.
these teams. Then we have Nick and Mike and Pops and Jeff. And they have to travel to the Burj Al Arab public beach. And this is where they do another roadblock. Um, and it's who's ready to ride a wave. So, I mean, Kyle, you'd be doing this
I'd be
again.
doing
But,
this.
but
Yeah.
what was interesting to me is they didn't have to do the other person
No,
because
they
Nick,
didn't. I
both
was
of
surprised.
them.
I thought that they were gonna do like, okay, you did the first one, now you have to do the second one.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, the teams
They're roughly
themselves,
even,
yeah,
but
they did do it. I think one team doubled up.
it was
Uh,
only Nick, it was double Nick.
Nick, that's right. It was double Nick. The guy with the bad eye. I guess you
But
didn't
it's
need to see for
strength.
this, but yeah, for strength, it was a strength one. But yeah, I think for the most part, everybody, the opposite person,
Mhm.
did this one. Um,
And I think they did pretty well with their like, thank God Holden dropped into Dubai because yet
right.
again,
Another surfing challenge, two back to back.
2 back-to-back surfing challenges. Well, the other one wasn't totally surfing, you were just on a
Right. Yeah.
surfboard, but this one was, like, actually surfing, and Han has background in surfing. Once I saw that it was this, I was just like,
Yep.
all right, we're
You're
keeping
gonna
the
crush
streak
it.
alive of Han and Holden having an upper hand.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm happy that their team is like rising. They're working better together. And it's just interesting watching them run the race because I would not have pegged them as a team to do well the way that they were bickering at the start of the race.
No, and the tasks weren't in their favor either.
Mhm.
They have increased over the last 5 legs, they have increased their placement, which is pretty
Pretty
hard
good.
to do.
Yeah.
Very impressive
I mean,
for
they
how
only
far
now
back
have
they were.
one more place to go because they got
Exactly.
second this leg, but, so Josiah got there first, Han next, Jonathan, Mark, Erica, Jeff, then Nick.
Mhm.
But we see Han leave first because she's just like, all right, let me practice to get the mechanics of the board down. And then she had it, no issues. All right, off sail into the sunset. Um, and then Josiah was having a lot of trouble.
He could not do this. I mean, it took him forever.
Yeah. Jonathan, though he got there third, left in fifth. Like
Mhm.
there were a lot of people having trouble. Jeff kept his shoes on.
Yeah, and he's never been really swimming. He hasn't swam much, he says. But he
Yeah.
says, "Pops told me it wasn't a good idea that I kept my shoes on. I didn't know that." You didn't know that? Like you like
When
just
do
in
you
your
go
head
swimming with your
intuitively
shoes on?
you thought, "Oh, this would be a good idea. This is oh yeah, I
It's
want more
actually
weight."
your feet turn into the good traction on the board.
Yeah,
Like
that
that's
when you're
what these
swimming,
things are
that's how
made
you paddle. The like when you're in swimming, you do that for drag practice, right? You don't do that to increase efficiency. So
for.
that was crazy. That was so wild, and it clearly didn't help, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Another interesting thing is Erica now did another roadblock.
yes,
So mom is at 2 and Erica is at, I think, like,
it'd
5
be
or
5
6?
now. Yeah,
5?
yeah.
So, is she allowed to do
We're
any more for the rest of the race? Like, I understand she kind of had to do this one because I don't know if Melinda would be getting this one, but
yeah. I think
I
she can do like maybe 2 more.
okay.
Yeah, 2 more because we have 6 legs left, and suppose they don't do another double roadblock at some
Mhm.
point, maybe they do, but, I mean, I think if she did, like, 5 of them, then she'd be at 7, and then if pardon me, if Erica does 2 more, then they'd be at 7 and 7, so I think
Okay.
I think, um,
Alright.
so, yeah, but there's not many left that
Yeah.
basically is what she can do. Melinda's gonna have to start rattling them off here.
Well, and what I didn't realize is Pops did the majority of the roadblocks
Yes, he
so
did. I didn't
so
realize
far,
that either.
and Jeff had been slacking, so Pops was like, "You gotta do
Yeah.
this one, buddy, like, get in there."
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Mark did not seem too happy about it, but
Yeah.
Brett seemed like he was like, "Oh, I should have done this," kinda thing, but I did the other one. So I don't it felt to me like, "Oh, Mark, you have to do this because I did the other one," but then we see Nick and Mike debating. So that was
Right.
just weird to me, how they were
Mhm.
like, "Oh, sorry, Mark. Have a nice time in the ocean."
I don't know what their count is at, Brett and Mark. I don't know who's done what,
I
or
don't
like
know
who's done how
either.
many. Um,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
if Hyro, you're still here and you know the answer, please comment in the
yeah, he
chat.
might know.
Um,
I wonder if Carson or Jack would have done this one. I assume Carson would have because it's
Probably Carson would have done this one,
yeah,
and also Jack did the
he did
skydiving too,
skydiving, yeah.
so they probably would have put Carson on this one.
Mhm. I also think Han and Holden would have finished first this leg had it not been for the fast forward. Because
Yeah.
as good as Carson and Jack are as a team, I think Han and Holden, like Han just would have done it in one try, and nobody else probably would have been able to do it in one try.
Mm-hmm. Cause
And
did
yeah,
Carson say anything or about surfing? Because Jack did the surfboard the last time and he
yeah.
was struggling
I
with
don't
it.
remember. I
I
don't,
forget if Carson said something
I don't
of like,
remember him saying
"Oh,
anything about
I'm an
surfing.
amateur surfer," or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I do think Han and Holden could have gotten their first place without the fast forward. So we get to the pit stop. Jack and Carson hit first place, and they get an Alaskan cruise for 2. Then Han and Holden in second, Alyssa and Josiah in third, Brett and Mark in fourth, Jonathan and Anna in fifth, Melinda and Erica in sixth, Nick and Mike in seventh, with Pops and Jeff being eliminated this episode. I was so sad for them because they could have stayed had they just jumped on the train. I
Yep, they just ran
also,
right in. Oh,
I
he had his arm in
also,
the thing and it closed on him, you know?
yeah. Well, because he was stuttering and hesitating. If they
Yep,
just went, then they
yep.
could have made it in. I
Ah,
also thought Brett and Mark might have gotten off at the wrong stop because they were like, "Oh, we've got to go to this number," and then it like zoomed in and went like the do 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 music. And I was like, do they actually have to go to that number, or is that this
that's
now
where
gonna
they
be
think.
them getting
Yeah.
lost? Because this is kind of the
Well, they
story.
could have gotten lost again.
Yeah.
If they said, "Take us to the Wiz Khalifa," I mean, what people would have been like, "What are you talking about?" They would have taken them someplace totally different. So navigation is by far their weakest suit.
Um, well, speaking of navigation, coming up is the first self-driving leg of the race.
Oh boy,
So that can change
they're in trouble.
literally everything. We might see like Melinda and Erica be toward the top of the pack because
Mhm.
they do have good communication with each other. And if one of them knows how to drive and one of them knows how to navigate, there you go. Like
Yeah.
they're golden here. And then
Yeah, we
we
could
have
see
a
Jonathan and Anna take another hit.
we could because I feel like they're a little tumultuous.
Yep. They didn't make up I mean, they made up some time, but they're still in the bottom half. So,
Yeah, I mean, it was because of the
I mean,
surfing, really, that
yeah, yeah,
Jonathan really tanked them.
yeah.
Um,
Which, I guess, so we have a double U-turn in the next episode, which
right.
looks like a traditional double U-turn, whoever gets
Is
there
it
first.
blind?
I don't remember them saying blind.
Because
Uh,
that would be interesting if it was a blind W turn.
it would be, but we saw a scene at the beginning of this episode with Carson and Jack and Jonathan and Anna when they met up in the airport. Jonathan
Mhm.
and Anna were not too pleased at Carson and Jack, so I wonder if some things get equalized here, or if Carson and Jack fall anywhere out of first, they are a prime U-turn target here. But if they do get there first, I could see them U-turning Jonathan and Anna again, and
Yeah, they
really
might just wanna
burying,
get them out of the race.
get them out. Yeah,
But the fact that it's a double U-turn and not just a single U-turn is what gets them. Where Jonathan and Anna, if they're up against pretty much the majority of, say, the bottom 3, I'd say they'd excel at the challenge better than or bottom 2, really. Nick
mhm.
and Mike and Melinda and Erica. I think they'd excel in the challenge more
Yeah, I agree.
than
Yeah,
either of those 2. So unless they're U-turned against Brett and Mark, Alyssa and Josiah,
yeah. Alyssa and
um,
Josiah, I feel like should be a target here. If I was Carson and Jack, I might want to push them down the standings because Han and Holden, they've been on a hot
give them the
streak, but
wrong leg and they
yeah,
could
yeah, I
blow
think
up.
that they might falter on their own at some point. But Alyssa and Josiah
They've
was
been solid.
terrible. They're so solid. Josiah was terrible at the roadblock, and they didn't lose any standing. They were third last time. They're third again this time. They still
Mhm.
were up there. So um, I do wonder uh, if people will start to notice them. But Carson and Jack, I mean, I feel like they're just going to consistently stay up in first. And if people don't get ahead of them, they can't U-turn them.
They
And then
did have
they
a
just dip.
confessional this episode saying, like, I feel like even if we were to get hit with something bad, we could recover
Yeah.
from it. So
Which
maybe that's
I agree.
some
Yeah.
foreshadowing.
Yeah. I think that they definitely could.
Mhm.
Because like you said, if it's Nick and Mike down there or whoever, I mean, those guys are on their way out the door. at this point. They can't make up any ground. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what the strategy are. Doesn't matter what the challenges. They're just consistently 10th, 8th, 8th, 7th, 7th. Like they're
Yeah, they're that team that, like, hovers around the place that they go out.
yes, and yeah,
So,
um,
like, once those bottom teams start, like, leaving,
mhm.
except for Scott and Lori, I'm still justice for Scott and
Right.
Lori.
Justice for Scott and Lori. Yeah,
Um,
that
so once those teams that are below them start getting eliminated, and then you hit the floor, and then that's it.
yeah. I mean, that's it. There, if things stayed the same, they'd be out next time. So we'll
I
see.
I like Melinda and Erica, and I'd like to keep them in longer than a few other teams because I
Mhm.
feel like I've connected with them more than like Brett and Mark, or I mean, surely more than Jonathan and Anna. I'm kind of really down on them.
Yeah,
Um,
quiet
Nick,
episode for them this episode.
which was good
It was good.
because we had a lot from them
It went a
last
lot. Yeah.
episode. um, So yeah, it'll be an interesting leg next week, and I think it'll be that, big shakeup that we're looking for because of the self-driving aspect of it, and,
Yeah.
like, that can really make or break you if you can't do it.
Somebody will get lost. Like
100%. I don't
inevitable.
think we've
Somebody
ever
will get
seen a season without it.
no, no. So it's just a matter of who it will be, and that could change
Yes,
everything. It may not. The U-turn may not even matter.
that's true. They U-turned
No, the
themselves
actually
instead of
U-turn. Yeah.
Alrighty, everyone. We will see you next Thursday for another episode of The Amazing Race. Goodbye.